Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right everybody, thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comic books, and I'll let you know what I thought about them. But first, I want to highlight Dynamic Forces real quick. Hop on over to Dynamic Forces. They got great collectibles and comics available for sale, signed books, remarked books, sketches, all that kind of stuff, right? But I do want to point out that right now, they got some really nice exclusive limited edition covers to Stray Dogs Dog Days issue number 1, including this fantastic Evil Dead 2 movie poster homage cover that I absolutely love. You can get signed copies, you can get non-signed copies. Check them all out at dynamicforces.com at the link in the description below or right up here in the video. And of course, remember to use the code Robbie at your cart. You'll save 10%. And we always start with the pick of the week. This week's pick of the week, Radio Apocalypse issue number 2 from Vault Comics, written by Robbie with artwork by Anand RK, Aditya Bidikar on the lettering, and Anisha as the colorist. I love this book. It's been a little bit of a wait. This book, first issue came out at the end of December, something like that. So it's been a couple months, but for me, well worth the wait. This is about the radio station at the end of the world, right? So there's been something that has happened. You get a little bit of clues as to what that is here in issue number 2 of Radio Apocalypse, but something has devastated the planet. Something has really wiped out the majority of humanity, and the last vestiges are living in these like outposts, right? And this one has a radio station. So it's also about the importance at the end of the world of maintaining humanity. What is that? That's relationships. That's joy, that's art, that's expressing oneself through another person's art, through music, finding your groove, if you will. I loved this book, a great structure in just a single issue alone. It did a great job of just giving us a great story connected to the overall narrative, introducing us to new characters, moving forward the progression of the story from the first issue established, amping up that threat. The artwork is 100% up my alley. It may not be to everybody's taste, but I love the line work and the composition. I love the coloring. And of course, yet again, a list of a few songs suggested to listen to while reading the book. I found 3 of them, really heightened that experience. Radio Apocalypse, issue number 2, hit every nail on the head. It makes the pick of the week. Also from Vault Comics, we got A Dark Interlude, issue number 3. It's here. Andrea Muti is no longer the artist, but we do have Piotr Kowalski, who's got a completely different style, but in typical sarcastic Henry types fashion, we get that referenced in the book. That being said, Kowalski's artwork is tremendous. It's really good. I was worried. I really liked the ethereal nature of Andrea Muti's work for this book in particular, but Kowalski has a different kind of line, a different type of detail, and it's really refined, and I liked it a lot. This same artist from Join the Future, I believe, but the artwork here to me was even further to another level than that. The story is great too. This is a book. It's a sequel to the book Fearscape. I would suggest that you read Fearscape and then jump into Dark Interlude. This is a sequel that's complaining about sequels, but because of the sarcastic, satirical, witty, and twisted way that this book is represented and brought about, it works, and it works flawlessly. It's been a while since the last issue, a huge gap. I think it's been over a year. Was it worth the wait? I think so, because Fearscape and Dark Interlude, I just love it. Ryan O'Sullivan nailed it. I'm loving the story. It's intriguing, but the artwork, I was nervous about the change, and I come away very impressed. Then we got We Ride Titans, issue number 2. This is also from Vault Comics. This one is written by Trace Dean, with artwork by Sebastian Perez, Dean Cuniff on the coloring. I like the book. I think it's pretty solid. What it is that in each town, there's like a mech to protect this town from some kind of, I don't know, like a kaiju or something. Like kaiju exists, giant monsters. So each town has to have a big mech to fight off monster occurrences, right? And each each mech is kind of run by a family, and it's generational. So you think about those like cop stories or whatever, where like it's a family of generational cops, and then one of them's like, I don't want to be a cop. Well, this one's like, I don't want to be the mech rider. I don't want to ride the Titan, right? I want to go off, live my own life. However, due to some situations that's not in her control, she has to join up with the family, reopen old wounds, and then get into the riding the Titan type thing, right? I like the book. I think it's all right. In the second issue, it develops a little bit more about this family, a little bit more about their dynamics with one another. It was just all right. It was pretty solid. Over at Marvel, we have Ghost Rider issue number 1, a new Ghost Rider by Benjamin Percy, Corey Smith. Artwork's okay, didn't really do anything super exciting, and the story didn't do anything exciting for me either. Without spoiling things, it basically has this big long setup, and if you're a reader, you're going to know what's going on pretty quickly, but you still have to make it through all the pages till you get to the ending that is the true setup, but not enough setup. This is a $5.99 comic book. It's extra sized, and to me, it did very little with its page count. It didn't clearly define any kind of a direction. I mean, it did clearly define a direction, but it didn't anchor me in, whether emotionally or just through badassery. And this is Ghost Rider. The first thing I should be picking up from a Ghost Rider number 1 should be excitement, exuberance, crazy, demonic, hellfire, demons, awesome explosions, chains, and whips, and all kinds of stuff, right? Ghost Rider number 1 for me, though, fizzled out just a little bit. Then we get Carnage Forever number 1. This is a one-shot, but it's kind of like a preamble to the upcoming Carnage ongoing series, which will be written by Robbie. The main story in here is written by Philip Kennedy Johnson. He was the main architect of the Extreme Carnage event, which is also in trade paperback this week. And then it's got a story at the end by Robbie that sets up a little bit about what's to come. So it's kind of like a bridge, if you will, between Extreme Carnage and the new Carnage series. It's got some interesting takes, it's got some cool artwork, it's got some cool concepts, so I'm excited to see what Robbie is going to be doing with Carnage. This book was pretty solid. Then we got Ben Reilly, Spider-Man issue number 2, J.M. DeMatteis doing the writing. The artwork is by David Baldeon, and a cool cover by Steve Scroce. So I've been liking this book. It's one of those Marvel books where they're flashing back to a different era, a different time, with creators usually associated with that. In this case, J.M. DeMatteis, who was doing Spider-Man work during the Clone Saga, during the days when Ben Reilly thought he was the real Peter Parker. He took over the role as Spider-Man. This story is set right in there. It was action-packed. It was trying to explore some things about the character, and it just had a great, consistent quality. The artwork is a little bit new school, but done in a more old-school approach, where it is vibrant, it's explosive, and the story I thought was really solid. It didn't quite win me over quite like issue number 1, but it scratched the itch that I needed for some old school classic Spider-Man feeling stories. Ben Reilly Spider-Man number 2, really dug that. Then we got Silver Surfer Rebirth number 2, really dug this one. We got the Ron team, the team of Rons returning, we can say. Ron Mars, Ron Lim, coming to do another Silver Surfer story, kind of set in those old school 90s days. This is right after Infinity Gauntlet. In the last issue, he comes across the son of Captain Marvel. All of a sudden, reality shifts and changes, and the old school Captain Marvel is back. Then at the end of that issue, Thanos shows up and kills him. What? So you got some Thanos, Silver Surfer action here, but there is more going on than meets the eye. Just like Ben Reilly Spider-Man, this one throws me back to another era, but you add in the benefit of having Ron Lim doing the artwork. It's not quite capturing that feel of the early 90s, late 80s Silver Surfer stuff, but it was fun. It took me back, and this is 2 classic feeling Marvel Comics this week. And they got more to come. Venom Lethal Protector, Wolverine Patch, X-Men Legends being rebooted, the Gambit series by Claremont. I think this could be a good direction for some Marvel stuff. It's getting me a little bit more excited. Strange Academy, issue number 16. Love this book. This is such an amazing book. I love the consistency on this book. The consistency of the writer, Scotty Young, developing these characters. And in 16 issues, I know and love and appreciate each and every single one of them. They each have their own distinct voices, their own distinct perspectives and personalities. And I am 100% anchored in emotionally with this entire ragtag crew, including Doyle. And this is the winter formal. Threats on the horizon. Something's looming. looming. The semester's about to be ending, and we got a new relaunch of the series, but keep it up like this, and I'm loving it. Consistency in the art. Humberto Ramos has been doing every single issue, and it's been some of the best work of the later part of his career. I love this book. This is one of Marvel's best. Strange Academy. The 10 Deaths Wolverine issue number 3. I don't like it. I'm still reading it. Why? I don't know. There was nothing in this book I liked. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, because some people are really digging it. Dark Ages issue number 5, the penultimate issue of this series. I'm just not feeling it, you know, like Tom Taylor, he can come in, he can kind of do these kind of Elseworlds type stories, Deceased, Dark Knights of Steel. Dark Ages, it's just not quite working for me. It doesn't have the emotional connection that, say, Deceased did. And I know I've been saying that a lot about some of the Tom Taylor books, but Deceased did such a great job of doing a wild Elseworld story that we knew didn't really matter in the scheme of the ongoing main continuity of the universe, but still made us like feel some things. And I feel like Tom Taylor's going for it here, but not quite delivering it. The art for me too, Ivan Coelho, a solid artist, but I just don't know if this is the book that's working for me. Some cool ideas happening here. The cover totally spoils the end of the book, so that kind of sucks. Anyway, Dark Ages number 5, it was alright. From DC, we have Aquamen issue number 1. So now we got Brandon Thomas and we got Chuck Brown here on the book together. Chuck Brown just did the Black Manta book. Brandon Thomas just wrapped up the Aquaman The Becoming book, focusing on Jackson. So this book is about the Aquamen. Arthur, Jackson, and Black Manta, right? It's an okay first issue. It's decently decent, but it's not breaking new ground. It's not gonna make anybody an Aquaman fan overnight. It does rely a lot on what's come before in some of the other books, so it kind of feels you're a little disjointed, disconnected if you're coming in wanting a fresh start, new reader. Doesn't really introduce us to the world or to the characters very well for a new reader. It 100% expects that you have been reading these Aquaman books, and I quit reading them. But that being said, it was a decently enough structured first issue, but over time I think that's going to wane a little bit, and that's unfortunate because I love Aquaman. Action Comics 1040, another great issue. Riccardo Federici, the artwork was great, and people that love these kind of like Ridley Scott Gladiator type stories, this kind of sword and sorcery, no, or not sorcery, though, sword and sci-fi, science fiction, I guess. If you like that kind of stuff, you're going to really love the artwork for this because it really helps accentuate that story and ground it in a harsh reality, right? I'm loving this book. I do feel like it's moving a bit slow, but I have faith in Philip Kennedy Johnson. This has been a great Superman run, epic in scope, and it feels like it's got true gravity and weight to the situation. Action Comics, great, and some Mongol bits in there. So cool. Some really cool concepts, too. Then we got DC vs. Vampires, issue number 5. I liked the last issue, but overall haven't really been digging on this series too much, and this one just does, I don't really dig on it either. The artwork by Otto Schmidt's feeling quite a bit rushed and loose and doesn't feel quite as refined as it could be, and so it's just not as exciting. You can tell that he's behind on the artwork because of some of the looseness of the artwork, the frantic looseness, one could say, but also because every few pages there's a different artist, and it looks like it's Simone DeMeo, but they're not credited on the cover, maybe in the back. That being said, it's Simone DeMeo, completely different styles. They don't really work together. It was disjointed, it was jarring, and it kind of stalled out my experience. DC vs. Vampires, issue number 5. It's alright. Detective Comics 1054. I'm liking the backup story still, completely. I have not been liking the main story, this tower story. Some people have, that's super cool, but I have not been liking it, and to me, this was like the worst issue of it yet. The artwork was subpar, the story's all over the place, it doesn't make sense. This should have been a tighter story. It's just, at least the way it's structured is throwing it all off, and I am not liking this Detective Comics run at all. Then we got Catwoman issue number 40. I didn't really like the first issue by Teenie Howard, but I wanted to jump back in just to read the second of her, just because Nico Leone's artwork is freaking fantastic. Once again, the artwork in Catwoman is amazing. I love the artwork. It's sleek, it's sexy, it's cool, feels sophisticated. The story, a little bit better with the script. Some off characterization, I think, on Selena. some tired tropey type things going on with like mobsters and their mistresses and things like that. But it was a little bit of a step up, I thought, writing-wise, creative-wise, from the previous issue. The artwork still soared, but overall, it's not doing too much for me. It's in danger of not being read again. Robin, number 11, though, by Josh Williamson. Loved this book. Super awesome. We're kind of bringing to a close this whole tournament, Lazarus tournament on this island story. And what's exciting to me is that a story that could have easily just been played out. Josh Williamson's figured out a way to make it interesting, to make it entertaining, and to make it actually get to the core of Damian and affect change in Damian's life. And then there's a setup at the end of this issue for the next issue. It's going to be a good one. I'm excited. Josh Williamson's been doing some of the best work with the character of Damian Wayne since Peter Tomasi and Grant Morrison before him. Robin number 11 was super solid for me. And then so was Deathstroke Incorporated, issue number 6. If you read both of these books, read Robin first, then jump into here, because there's some stuff that happens here that flows its way into Deathstroke Incorporated. So Deathstroke Incorporated has been about Slade Wilson, working for the Trust Organization, trying to make it a go as a hero. He's teamed up with Black Canary, but they're both just trying to figure out what's going on. Well, in the last issues, they figured out what was going on. It was a villainous organization. It was run by a secret society of supervillains. So then Deathstroke takes over. And this issue is him trying to convince, very physically convince, Black Canary to join up, and it's setting this book in a new direction, in a new way. It's obviously surely going to set up and flourish and expand upon itself in the Dark Crisis book, because we've seen Deathstroke and the Secret Society kind of spotlighted on those covers. I'm really liking this book. Howard Porter is not here on the artwork, but Pantalina does a pretty decent job. It's a quirky kind of style, a little cartoony, a little bit different. I mean, Howard Porter is a cartoony style, but a different type of style. But it still worked for me. It had an excitement level. I thought it was great. Then, from DC Black Label, we have The Human Target, issue number 5. Structurally, this book was really obnoxious to me when I was first reading it. When I get to the end of it, I liked it. I thought it was a cool little thing he did structurally, Tom King and Greg Smallwood on the art, to kind of tell the story and get to the point in a really interesting kind of way. That being said, there's a big mischaracterization done on one of my favorite DC characters in this issue. Hint, hint, he's on the cover. That being said, I still like the book structurally. I thought it did some cool stuff. The artwork is great. So I liked it, not as much as issue 4, but I liked it. I'm liking the book more and more as it goes along. Let's just say that. Refrigerator Full of Heads is here with issue number 4. This book is nowhere near as good as Basket Full of Heads. Part of that is the artwork. The artwork by Tom Fowler is fine, but it's not quite what I liked about Leah Mack's artwork in the first one. There was something that felt like old school horror comics in the original Basket Full of Heads. This one, of course, the writing is not as solid. It's not Joe Hill. It's Rio Ewers kind of doing his thing. But I'm still having fun with it. This is like a cheesy sequel, right? This is like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 to Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 74. We haven't gotten to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022 yet. That one's probably going to be like Backyard Full of Heads, Trunk Full of Heads or something. Anyway, that being said, this book is not near as good as the first volume, but I'm having a lot of fun with it. Let's jump over to some indies. And first up, we have Heavy Metal Drummer from Behemoth Comics. This blew me away. This was one of the first Behemoth books that I have gotten super into. I loved this book. It's a little bit of a smaller book. If you look at it compared to another book, it's a little bit smaller. It's got a wild, crazy story, but it's the artwork that really sells it for me, right? So the artwork is done by Luca Vassallo. The story is written by Kiefer Vindlow and Emiliano Pliskin. So it's really weird. Okay, so basically what happens is that at the beginning, there's this band, they're about to play or practice or something, the drummer starts going, and then it goes into this crazy thing where there's some kind of, it's hard to explain, there's some kind of like, I don't know, alien spore, extra-dimensional spore or something that's leaking in the sewers, it's infecting the rats, that in turn infects the cats, who in turn infect old ladies who become women of the night, who get young and sexy and then infect men. It is wild, and it is psychedelic, and it is gnarly, and it is gross, and it is out there. There's certain pages I can't show you. It is freaking cool. It's like in a reptilian invasion of Earth, in a really elaborate kind of way. This book was wild. If you like really wild, indie, crazy comics, check this out. This is my sleeper hit of the week. I could not believe it. This one blew me away. Heavy Metal Drummer from Behemoth. If that sounds like it's going to be your jam, it's going to be your jam. Seriously. From Image Comics, we have Step by Bloody Step. I really liked this. It's Simon Spurrier with Bergara on the artwork. Is it just Mateus Bergara? Mateus Lopez on the coloring. I really liked it. So this is a silent comic. There is no dialogue here. There's some dialogue, but it's just symbols that are ineligible or illegible. And they're ineligible, actually, for prize. But it's got beautiful freaking artwork. The artwork is great. So what it is there's this, it's almost like a robot or something. Some kind of giant knight thing has a little girl in its palm, and the little girl wakes up, and it says in the back, a girl wakes, she has no memories, no name, no language, nothing, except a giant. So it's literally just this giant in, like, armor carrying her across, and it's told silently, or every comic technically is silent, but it doesn't have really any dialogue in it, and it tells the story visually, and it does it in a very fantastic way. This was in contention for Pick of the Week, Step by Bloody Step. It's $4.99, there's a lot of pages, but you can sit there and just linger on pages because the artwork is beautiful, the coloring is rich, and it's got a texture to it, but it's got this whimsical quality as far as the story goes, and it still is able, even without dialogue, to introduce you to the character, the concept, and emotionally connect you to it. That's awesome. Step by Bloody Step was pretty freaking well done. Saga issue number 56. Brian K. Vaughan, Fiona Staples doing what they're doing. Saga is back, and now it's back each and every month till it goes on a hiatus again. But Saga 56 was a really solid issue. We got some interesting turn of events in the last issue. Turns out now that the family is kind of pulling their own version of weeds, right? They're drug dealers now, right? And of course, it's going to lead them into a situation that's going to be a little ridiculous and that they shouldn't have been into. I really like this one. It's got humor. It's got that quirky feeling to it. It's also got that emotional connection that you're expecting from Staples and Vaughn's work on Saga. I loved it. Introducing a new character here. I'm not familiar with this other character that showed up, but a new task, throwing another wrench into the system. I love Saga. I got the chance to reread all of it right before the newest issue dropped, and then jumping into this. Fantastic. Love the artwork. Love the story. These characters are fully realized. This issue has never been... no issue of this has ever been dull or boring. Let me tell you that. Saga 56. Loved it. Then we got Girl Scouts Stone Ghost issue number 4. I'm loving the hell out of this book, right? So I was a big fan of Jim Mahfouz's Girl Scouts back in the days, like the Oni Press days. I was a big fan of his work. I got introduced to his work through the Kevin Smith Clerks comics. So I remember the last volume of Girl Scouts coming out and thinking it was really weird. Style is way different now, right? But I love it. I could just stare at... Well, that was the wrong page to show. I could just stare at some of these pages. It's absolutely beautiful. I had commented in the last 3 issues that this was kind of confusing, but still, like, enamoring to me. Like, it was still very compelling, and it kept drawing me in. And now I'm 100% into the story, on board. Nothing confused me. This was first issue. I was not confused whatsoever. I understood exactly what was going on. And then, of course, it didn't hurt that this is an explaining kind of point in the story, but I'm loving it. There's an emotional connection. Why is it all emotional connections tonight? There's got an emotional core to the story, and it's got some wild, cool, rambunctious artwork that's unlike anything you see. Girl Scout Stone Ghost number 4. Give it a try. Give it a try. See what you think. Gunslinger Spawn is here with issue number 5. Loving it, right? So we got the introduction of the new Clown. And so Clown and Violator can kind of like exist at once now. You find out how that's possible in the pages of Gunslinger Spawn number 5. And he's got all these other clowns running around with him. You find out what they're about, and that's pretty effed up. But I'm loving it. Brett Booth pumping out some of the best artwork of his career, in my opinion. I'm loving this book. Basically, Clown is trying to convince Gunslinger Spawn to join him in battle against Al Simmons, trying to plant a mole in the team Spawnverse or whatever, right? But I'm loving this book. It's super fun. It's got great artwork. It's dynamic. It's clean. Gunslinger Spawn. Plus, it's $2.99 with a cardstock cover. So that's pretty cool. Department of Truth is here with issue number 16. This is another Deviations issue. It's talking about Lee Harvey Oswald, or the one that runs the Department of Truth. He's found out that he's a made-up person, a fictionalized person. And so this is the free love, hippie, MK Ultra acid issue, right? So the artwork is... I can't show you some of these pages. The artwork is incredibly psychedelic. It's about that hippie movement, but about some of the problems behind that hippie movement, the government's involvement of it. Really weird, cool, wild stuff. I love Department of Truth. This one didn't... It's another issue of people talking to each other and explaining things, but it gets to a thing at the end that I really, really liked. I've been loving these Deviations issues. I didn't really like the Bigfoot one. But outside of that, the Mothman one from last issue blew me away. This one didn't blow me away quite as much, but I did like it. I thought it was cool. Department of Truth, I've been digging that book, like, immensely. Then we have BRZRKR, issue number 7. Did he just say? Anyway, BRZRKR number 7 was really cool. Kind of takes this story into a different direction that I wasn't quite expecting, but nowhere near veering away from being brutal, violent, bloody, and just a bombastic fight experience. Ron Garney's really rough. Pencils remind me of some Klaus Janson gold. I freaking love this book, and I cannot wait to see Keanu Reeves actually do this on screen, because you know what's going to happen, right? You know what's going to happen. But in here, we get a little bit more of a backwards history lesson about him. There's this really interesting concept about, like, an ancient relic that's somehow attached to him, or should I say used to be attached to him. That was interesting. I'm loving this book. Each issue is entertaining and moves the story forward just a little bit, both narratively, both thematically, and that's two things, so that covers both. Then we got House of Slaughter, issue number 5. This is wrapping up this whole story about Draco. Is it Aaron and Jace. I didn't really like this that much. I mean, I don't know. I think Aaron had his character moment in the pages that something is killing the children. I appreciate the story for what it's trying to do, but it just didn't do much for me. And then in the next issue, we got a new team coming on talking about a new story. So this is an anthology series. This whole first thing just didn't really work for me. Maybe there's some setup, I'm sure. It definitely ends by setting up some stuff that could be relevant in the pages of Something is Killing the Children. So it is responsible for setting up some things, but it just doesn't quite have an oomph factor that Something is Killing the Children has, at least for me. House of Slaughter number 5, I thought was just okay. Red Sonja is here from Dynamite with issue number 6. I've been really liking this Mirka Andolfo Red Sonja book. She's come across this young girl named Mirtha or something, or Mytha. What's her name? Sitha? Something like that. She's like a Firestarter, right? So she's like little young Drew Barrymore and Firestarter running around with Red Sonja. Red Sonja's been kidnapped, so now she's trying to go after her. This was my least favorite issue of this run so far. I found it to be just a bit clunky with the way that it was structured, and then definitely the way it ended. It just didn't quite grab me, because I feel like the first 5 issues of this have been really solid, but they promise a new start in the next issue, so let's see what happens. Then we got Vampirella, Dracula, Unholy, a love story, issue number 3. I just started reading some of the first issues of Christopher Priest's Vampirella run, and I liked it. I liked it a lot. So I have found myself a little bit confused by this run, but I'm starting to lose some of that confusion because I'm just kind of getting used to what's going on with the story. It's a wild concept. So there's this dude who's got a boyfriend, but he somehow is infected with a virus that's going to slowly turn him into Dracula. And so in order to end that, Vampirella's got to marry him, then bone him in some kind of blood rite. I mean, sign me up. Sounds good. Anyway, the book is pretty solid. The artwork's got some moments where it shines and some other moments where it doesn't. But overall, I thought the story and the idea behind it is pretty solid. Vampirella, Dracula, Unholy, a love story. Issue number 3, got that Ken Hazer TMNT homage. As well as for Purgatory, issue number 5. This wraps up this Purgatory story. Ray Fox. This story's been about these witches trying to coerce or fool and trick Purgatory into feeding on them, and then they're going to possess her. The way that Purgatory figures out how to solve that problem is pretty gnarly to me in this issue, and then it has a big setup as to what's to come. I've liked this book. It hasn't taken itself too seriously. It's not as fun as something like Nyx, but it's kind of just underneath it in fun level. I'm enjoying it. Purgatory, and I'm loving these Ken Hazer covers. Then from Archaea, also from Boom, we have The Killer, Affairs of the State. This was a $4.99 exercise book that was arduous to get through. It was overly verbose. It was very stiff and stagnant in its artwork. It's about these assassins undercover in the rat race? I don't know. But look at that. Nothing exciting, nothing dynamic, nothing about this really appealed to me. Some of the art is fine, but it doesn't do a good job of like telling me a story and doing something awesome, intriguing me. This was dull, this was boring, and it was rather difficult to get through. So that's what I read, that's what I thought. What are you reading? What are you digging? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And join us over at patreon.com/PCP if you want to help support the channel. I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading. Station. Pop, pop, boom.